This is the Louie T Network.
Who else could it be but me, your man, Louie T? Welcome to the Redskins Report Live. Welcome, all my fellow Redskin brethren and sister. I am your man and resident Redskins fan, Lou. Thank you for joining me here on the Redskins Report Live. Back after the bye, Redskins sit at 4-3-1. Got some good news for you. Good news and some bad news. Which one you want first? I'll give you the good news, man. I'll feed you your dessert first, give you your veggies last. The good news is, if the season ended today, our Washington Redskins would be in the playoffs as the 6th seed. The bad news, the playoffs don't start today. And so that doesn't mean a goddamn thing. We got a lot of work to do. That's what that means. So, got a couple of topics to discuss. This should be a relatively quick program. There's not much to chew on. Obviously, no game last week, so no game notes. Nothing really to discuss from the past week. But there were some things that did take place that we must discuss. And so, among them, Trent Williams suspended for the next 4 games. Haven't talked to you since that news came down last week, and that's a big blow. Trent's going to be down. I think we may have talked last week about that. I think we did. I take that back. We did talk about that last week on last week's program, if I'm not mistaken, because I do vividly remember saying I hope he appeals and they knock it down to 3 games. Doesn't sound like there's going to be appeal made, but I've heard some things that sounds a little shady on the part of the NFL and the way this was done. But at the end of the day, Trent's failed multiple drug tests. We all know that he smokes weed. That hasn't been a fact that has been lost in all of this. He's guilty. We know he's guilty. It's just a matter of how the process was carried out, which is the gripe that Trent Williams and his camp has right now. But that's a devastating blow to this football team. Trent Williams probably one of the best players, not probably, is one of the best players on the team. Arguably, they're the 3 best players on this team: Josh Norman, Trent Williams, and Jordan Reed. You can put them in any order you like, but Trent Williams in the top 3 of the best players on this team, pound for pound. And so that's going to be an instrumental loss. Hopefully, it doesn't kill us against one of the best defenses in the league, the Minnesota Vikings. So we'll see how that goes. But Niles Paul, done for the season. Our special teams hasn't been that great this year, especially when we've kicked it off. Remember, we gave up the 87-yard kickoff return versus Philadelphia. Remember, we gave up we've given up some big returns this season when we do kick it off. So in London, we kicked it off to the Cincinnati Bengals, and they get the huge return. Alex Erickson gives them a return right after we score our first touchdown in the game. So kickoff, return, special teams units haven't been great this year, and now it's going to be worse because there's no more Niles Paul. That's one fiend gone off of the special teams unit. That's going to hurt us. And it's also going to hurt our 3 tight end package. We were running that well, and sometimes Niles would line up in the backfield. Well, that shoulder injury going to keep him out for the remainder of the season. He's been placed on IR. That's another little bit of a blow to this football team. But we move forward, man. We've been here before with Niles. It's a shame because he's actually playing well, and I wanted to see him get more involved in the offense. And maybe that was going to happen in the second half of the season, maybe not. We'll never know because now he's gone for the season. Also, we're wearing our traditional throwbacks this week. I think we're going to wear the jerseys that we wear when we have our homecoming game. I don't know if this is, in fact, the homecoming game or not, but I do know the Redskins, and I have this as my thumbnail for this video, are wearing their no-stripe helmets with gray face masks. I've never seen this before. This is all brand new to me. I've never seen the Redskins wear gray face masks before. Maybe they have worn them and I just wasn't paying attention. In any event, the face mask is gray. There's no stripe in the helmet, and it's just all burgundy. So that's a different look for the boys in burgundy and gold, minus the gold on the helmet. So that'll be interesting to see how that looks when they come out on Sunday. We've seen them without the stripe before, but again, I don't know if that face mask was gray or not. But in any event, it should be nice to see the fellas back on the field after a 1-week hiatus. We're going to talk about the upcoming opponent and the rest of this season, because Redskins right now, like I mentioned at the top of this program, sitting at 4-3-1, would be in the playoffs if they began today. But guess what? They don't begin today. They don't begin for another 7 or 8 weeks from now. So because of that fact, the Redskins have a ton of work to do right now, sitting at third place in the NFC East with a record of 4-3-1. Everyone outside of the Philadelphia Eagles in this division is sitting at 2-1 in this division. Everyone having one loss in this division outside of the Eagles again, who are 0-3 in this division and basically left for dead. So from that standpoint, there's a lot of work to be done. Everyone's basically got a level playing field outside of the Cowboys, who are sitting at 7-1, looking pretty and looking down on the rest of us in this division. The Giants, via their win in week number 9 versus the Philadelphia Eagles, are now 5-3 and sitting atop of us in this division, putting us in third, and the Eagles are bringing up the rear at 4-4. So we'll see what happens moving forward with everyone in this division. This is a tight division. I think the Cowboys have an opportunity to run away with this division, but their schedule gets tough just like the rest of us. So they might come back down to the pack. I don't expect them to run away and hide like they did a couple of years ago when they went 12-4 and no one else in the division was close. I think this thing can tighten up, and it can tighten up fast, but everyone's got to do their part. That includes us. You got to win football games in order to have the Cowboys. It doesn't matter if the Cowboys lose if we lose too. So I still have my eyes on that top prize. I still want the division. And that's not out of the realm of possibility. It's not out of reach. We see the Cowboys in a couple of weeks on Thanksgiving. They got a tough one at Pittsburgh. They got the Ravens after that. They could easily drop both of those games. They could easily win both of those games. In any event, we can't worry about what they're doing. We got to take care of our own business. We got our own set of problems to deal with, like the Minnesota Vikings, who are desperate now, losers of 3 straight, looking for a W in the worst way. They're clinging to a lead that was once a foregone conclusion in their own division. Now they're a half game ahead of the team that just beat them last week. So you know they're desperate. Their head coach is telling them they must win this game. They're going to come out with a sense of desperation, a level of desperation that we haven't seen from a team this season. So we have to come out and play our brand of football, and we have to play mistake-free football, and we got to score points because the Vikings are struggling in that department right now. And if we go out and we put up points, they're not going to be able to keep pace with the way their offense has been functioning of late. But we'll talk about all of those things a little bit later on. We got the Packers after that. You know how I feel. I am a one-game-at-a-time guy, so we need to just pay attention to the team in front of us, that being the very desperate Minnesota Vikings coming into our place at 5-3. So let's get to some of your comments, because again, like I said, this is going to be a rather quick show because really not a lot to discuss. I already touched on Niles Paul being out for the season. You already know that the silverback Trent Williams is done for the next 4 games. You know about the helmet. I just told you about the helmet and probably us wearing some throwback jerseys. No stripe on the helmet, all burgundy, gray face mask. So now it's basically up to us to just discuss the week 12 or 10 matchup versus the Minnesota Vikings. Talk about what we think is going to happen, what needs to happen for us to get the W, and then we'll get out of here and make this a rather quick program. So let's jump into some of your comments. Mr. DCB215 says, need some good news tonight after last night. Tyree Mosby says, Donald Trump, our president. Yeah, I'm aware of this. Jonathan Adams says, Ty Nsekhe will be okay at left tackle. I hope so. Ty Nsekhe is not the most athletically gifted left tackle. He's a big man, but he's not the most fleet of foot. And that worries me against some very athletic and explosive pass rushers in Minnesota's tandem of Everson Griffin and also Danielle Hunter. Those guys are extremely explosive, quick off the snap. And Ty Nsekhe, again, doesn't move his feet very well. So I'm nervous. I'm not as confident as you are, Jonathan. I hope you're right. I hope he's okay. He'll be okay against lesser opponents. But these aren't lesser opponents. These are the Minnesota Vikings, and they have one of the best defenses in the league for a reason because they can get after the quarterback. And so Ty Nsekhe at left tackle does worry me this week. Maybe not as much next week versus the Green Bay Packers, who don't have elite pass rushers. But this week versus Minnesota Vikings, who do have elite pass rushers, yes, that does worry me just a tad. Sean Hawk Talks NFL. See the different name. I like that. I have a strong trust in Ty Nsekhe. You guys, you keep going ahead and putting that blind faith in Ty Nsekhe. I can't do it. I am a glass half full guy, so I am an optimist. But I always tell you, I am a cautious optimist. And so that approach has not changed, especially when it comes to my Redskins. I don't deviate away from cautious optimism, because when I do, and I just become optimist, I just become very, very when I become very optimistic, that's when things go awry. Like last year in the playoffs versus the Green Bay Packers, I got ahead of myself. I got very, very overly optimistic that we would beat the Packers. Hell, I called them out. I said, I want the Green Bay Packers. And some of you said, hey, don't do that. You don't want Aaron Rodgers. Don't call them out. I did it anyway. We got blown out. So I tend to err on the side of caution when talking about my Redskins. And Ty Nsekhe is a guy that has me a little nervous. We'll see what happens. I hope you guys are right for all of our sakes. Tyree Mosby says, what strategy can we use to win? I think the best way to attack the Minnesota Vikings is through the air. Their run defense is pretty stout, and we don't run it very well. I think we're going to see a heavy dose of Fat Rob Kelly in this game. Matt Jones. Who? Matt Jones. I think he's going to be back in this game as well. I think he's going to get a couple touches, but I think Fat Rob is going to get the bulk of the carries. Who knows how many carries that's going to consist of in this game, but the Vikings secondary hasn't been great of late. If you're going to take any advantage of any part of their defense, it'd be the secondary, if you ask me. So I think that's where we would want to try to attack them. We're going to have to protect up front because, like I said, they're an aggressive defense. They can get after your quarterback. They force turnovers. They're really good at doing that. And they don't miss opportunities to take the football away. So if we make a mistake, most likely they're going to capitalize off of it. They're struggling offensively. So if we don't give them any short fields, if we don't give up anything in the special teams game, and we just force them to drive the length of the field all game long, we're in good shape. They're struggling on the offensive side of football. Granted, our defense isn't lights out and they don't shut teams down. I don't think they need to be in this game in order to have a good game. I think this Vikings offense is really struggling right now. They don't have their offensive coordinator anymore. Norv Turner moved on, decided that it was best if he moved on from this football team this season. So Pat Shurmur has taken over. And last week they employed a short passing game. Sam Bradford went 31 of 40 for 200 and some odd yards. So you're talking about less than probably 7 or 8 yards an attempt last week. I mean, they really were nickel and diming their way down the field. So they used the short passing game as a substitute for the running game because they've been so bad running the football. And in addition to that, they've had trouble protecting the quarterback. They've had so many changes along their offensive line. Both tackles are out for the season. So they're playing musical chairs along that offensive line. They're struggling up front. So if we could take advantage of that, that'd be great. Force a turnover or two from Sam Bradford, that would be awesome. But bottom line, offensively, we need to take care of the football, and we need to be able to throw the ball in the air. It'd be great to stay balanced, set up play action fake, take a couple of shots in this game. But bottom line, protect Kirk, protect the football. We should be fine on the offensive side of the ball. And when we get chances to score touchdowns, we get in the red zone, we need to cash in and get 7, not 3s. This team is struggling to score, and if we let them hang around and this game is close at the end, they can steal it from us, just like we've seen the last couple of games stolen from us at the very end. So we need to do a better job of taking advantage of opportunities in the red zone. That's, to me, some of the biggest keys of the game. On the defensive side of football, it's pressure, pressure, pressure. Stop the run first. Make them a one-dimensional team like they've been over the last 3 weeks in this losing streak, and then get after Sam Bradford and make him uncomfortable. When he was uncomfortable versus the Bears, when he was uncomfortable versus the Eagles, turnovers happened, game was lost. Last week, he wasn't uncomfortable because he got rid of the football quickly, but they didn't do a lot of damage, and they struggled to move it down the field, hence the 16 points in that game. So if we can find a way to stop the run first and foremost and make them a one-dimensional football team, then we can pin our ears back in third and long situations or just third down in general and try to get after Sam Bradford and force him into maybe 1 or 2 mistakes in this football game. Let's see now what you guys have to say. All right. Captain Spartan 04 says, which kicker do you have less confidence leading into the next Vikings game? Blair Walsh or Hop? I'm good with my man D-Hop. I think all Redskins fans feel just as confident in D-Hop now as we did before the miss versus Cincinnati. I haven't had my confidence waver at all. He's a good kicker, and he just had a blip. You know, it happens. The snap wasn't the best. It wasn't the worst. Still should have made the kick, but I have the utmost confidence in Hopkins to get the job done. D-Hop is fine. Blair Walsh, on the other hand, I know a lot of Vikings fans that aren't confident in him at all. So I think the answer there is D-Hop for sure. Jonathan Adams says, I feel sorry for Niles Paul. Yeah, he's been having some bad luck of late, and it's a shame that for the second consecutive season, he's going to finish the season up on IR. Amic89 says, would you want Sheldon Richardson? I love his game, but I don't like him as a person. I think he's a bad guy. We know about the situation where he was speeding and got pulled over with a kid in the back seat. He's a knucklehead on the field. He does dumb stuff. I just don't think he's a mature individual. I wouldn't want him in my locker room, but as a player, the guy is uber talented, and we could use a guy like him on the football field. But on the team necessarily, nah, I'm not a Sheldon Richardson guy. Adrian Hernandez says, will Rob Kelly still get the majority this week? Yeah, that's the plan. They said he's earned it, and until otherwise, he's going to be the guy. Dom Espo says, Everson Griffin is going to be a problem. I hope not, but like I said, with Ty Nsekhe out there, and even Morgan Moses has his times where he struggles a bit. I'm nervous. To say that I'm not nervous would be lying to you, and I'm not one in the business of lying to family members. I'm nervous about this week's game and those matchups out on the edge. Jonathan Adams says, I feel Fat Rob will show off in this game late in the third quarter into the fourth. Hopefully that's the case, and if he's getting touches in the third and into the fourth, that means we're most likely ahead in the game. That'd be great. I'd love to see him get some opportunities to do some things in this football game. Sergio Pinto Tapia says, Rob Kelly is the main man now. Yes, he is. Hopefully it stays that way. I think barring any kind of injury or big boo-boo on his part, say a fumble, I think Rob is going to be the guy moving forward this season. I can't guarantee you anything moving forward. Andre Mogul says, for my picks this week, I got you guys beating the Vikes. Losing Norv was big for them, and I think teams have figured out the D of the Vikes. I don't know if teams have figured out their defense necessarily, but I know they love to mug the A-gap and blitz right up the A-gap. So that's something really big. They like to confuse your offensive line by mugging the A-gap. Then you don't know who's coming. They're going to drop a guy. They may both come. One may not come. Both may come. Both may not come. They love to mug the A-gaps and try to cause confusion. If you can figure that out, and again, it's a guessing game because you have no idea which of those guys is coming. Both could be coming. Neither could be coming. One could be coming, and you don't know which one is coming. The guy on the left side of the center or the right side of the center. I mean, it's hard to really decipher what's going on, and that's their favorite tool to use defensively when they want to create confusion and cause a little bit of pressure and disruption up front, is they love to mug the A-gaps. Sergio Pinto Tapia says, is Xavier Rhodes a shutdown corner? I don't think he's a shutdown corner, but he's damn close. There aren't many. I hate when people throw around the term shutdown corner. There aren't many of those around. He's a really, really good corner. Just like Josh Norman, he gets a ton of penalty flags, though. He gets flagged for hands to the face, illegal contact. He hasn't gotten the respect yet. He's not a made man in this league to the point where he can get away with mugging receivers and not have a flag thrown. So he's a guy that you can go after and have some success, whether it be catching a football on him or getting a flag call. But if you make a mistake around him, he will make you pay. He is a very, I repeat, very good defensive back in this league. He's not a A-level corner, but he is definitely a B-plus level corner on the cusp of having that turn into an A very shortly. Let's see what else you guys have to say. Tyree Mosby says, when are we going to see Sua Cravens? Well, you act like he hasn't been playing or something. He's fine. He's been out there. I mean, he was the main reason we were able to get pressure on Andy Dalton last game. He blitzed a ton in the end of the fourth quarter and into overtime, which gave us an opportunity to get the football game into overtime. That blitz and that sack on Dalton at the end of the fourth quarter when it looked like they were going to drive into field goal range and beat us, that was all Sua Cravens. That sack in overtime when they were driving and it looked like they were going to get a chance to beat us, that was all Sua Cravens. He's been on the field. He's been on the field. Amic89 says, do they have anybody that keep up with Jay Reed? They got athletic linebackers for days. That doesn't mean they can keep up with Jay Reed. That just means they can run. So, again, Kirk's going to have to be on his P's and Q's, Y's and Z's, and making sure he's paying attention and alert because those boys can run. And they're very smart, and they make plays on the football. So if Kirk is reckless, they will get their hands on some footballs and potentially pick one of them off in this game. So, no, I don't think anybody can stick with Jay Reed in this league, man. Not one-on-one, anyway. Roger Arthur says, you think Murphy should replace Smith as a starter and let Smith sub in? That's a possibility, man. Trent Murphy definitely deserves more snaps. So I honestly don't care. I don't make a big deal out of who starts, who doesn't. I just want to know who's on the field in crunch time. When we need a stop, when we need to get after the quarterback, who's on the field then? And I want to see a package with all three of those guys, Kerrigan, Smith, and Murphy, all on the field at the same time, mugging around, standing around, kind of trying to cause some confusion. I would like to see these guys all on the field at once trying to get to the quarterback. And they do have packages like that. Lorenzo Simpson says, what should be the game plan for Sunday? I basically went over that already. The keys to the game for the Redskins. And I'll go over it again a little bit more when we get to the bow and go a little bit later on in this program. Jonathan Adams says, the Redskins need to start quickly, score points early on the Vikings so they will fold. I don't think they'll fold, but early points will definitely be in our best interest because, again, the Vikings are having trouble scoring the rock. So if we can find a way to get some points early, that will put pressure on them to feel like they need to change up their philosophy, which may take them out of their comfort zone and force them into a couple of mistakes. If they start trying to push the football down the field because they're down 17-3 midway through the third quarter, that's better for us because now they're out of their element. Now they're trying to do things that they're not capable of doing, like trying to run deeper routes, get bigger chunk plays, and now that calls for more protection for longer periods of time, something that they've struggled with this season. So if we can score, again, our biggest pet peeve and bugaboo in the first half of the season was scoring points in the red zone. We moved the football with the best of them. Our yards per game, our lack of punts, our lack of 3-and-outs, all of these things are indicative of what the Redskins have been this season. Our biggest problem is that when we get into the red zone, we bog down. Our red zone offense hasn't been effective enough. So if we can turn that around in the second half of the season, I don't see many teams keeping up with us offensively because we're dynamic and we move the football. But it doesn't matter how well you move it if you don't move it across the thick white line. And we haven't been doing that. The thick white line separating end zone from field of play is the line that we need to start crossing more often with the football still attached to one of our players' hands. If we can do that more often, we're going to be a tough team in the second half of this season. Adrian Hernandez says, do you think Deshaun Jackson will have a big game? Hard to say. It's hard to say what kind of looks he'll get, and what kind of coverage will be dictated his way. Who will they try to take away? Will they try to take away Deshaun Jackson? Will they try to take away Jordan Reed? We really don't know. We don't know what their game plan will be. Seems like teams are taking away Deshaun Jackson deep, and so we're not getting those opportunities to take shots down the field. And when we do, Kirk has already made up his mind. He's going elsewhere. Maybe Deshaun's not the first read on that play. So we'll see what happens. I would, how I am. I'm a big proponent of just getting the football in his hands. It doesn't necessarily have to be a deep ball. Could be a shallow crosser, a little dragger across the middle of the field. Nobody checking him. Get into his hands, get some blockers out in front of him. Could be a bubble screen. I really don't care. I just want to see Deshaun touch it more out in space where he can become a dynamic runner and a punt returner, essentially. Eagle Speed is a Nerd says, if you could have 3 players in the NFL currently playing in their prime, who would it be? I don't know. And those types of questions, we want to keep those for the Louie T Live program a little bit later on tonight. This is more of a Redskins-oriented program. Lorenzo Simpson says, who do you see being a key factor for the second half of the season? For me, the Redskins have a number of guys that have to step up. because let's face it, we got to score more touchdowns. So I'm looking for guys to step up in the red zone and be more of a factor there. Pierre Garçon and Jordan Reed come to mind there when you're talking about getting in the end zone more. I think those are two guys that can get their hands on the football a little bit more in the red zone. Also, defensively, I need Preston Smith to step up in the second half of this season. He's been a huge disappointment. Remember, this is a guy that got 7.5, 8 sacks last season in his rookie year, came on strong at the end of last season. We were expecting big things. He looked good in the preseason. Haven't seen that guy since. And it'd be nice if he could have another stretch run like he had last year and really turn it up, because we could use that production. We're getting a lot of pressure on the quarterback, believe it or not, but we're not winning one-on-one matchups. We're having to blitz a lot of times to hit home, which I don't really give a damn how you do it. Just do it. Bottom line is, I'd love to see Preston Smith step up. I'd love to see Vitamin B step up. This was the season we said he was supposed to have 4 or 5 picks because everybody's going to be running away from Josh Norman and coming to his side of the field. And it just hasn't been that way. He hasn't made plays. He hasn't had a pick since week 1 versus Pittsburgh. I'd love to see him step up on the defensive side of the football and start forcing some turnovers. We need turnovers. We need to shorten the field for the offense. That will help us score more points. So I'd love to see those 2 guys in particular, 3 guys I should say, in particular, really step their game up. Well, 4. 2 on the offense, 2 on the defense. And the guys that I mentioned on offense, Pierre Garçon and Jordan Reed, really don't need to step their game up as much as just get it done in the red zone. Tyree Mosby says, can you see Fat Rob as our starter in the future? And that I can't answer because I think the Redskins don't see him as a long-term solution right now. I think they just see him as a guy that can get it done for them right now. So I don't know if he's a guy that's a long-term solution or not. I don't think he is, but we'll see. Sean Hawk Talks NFL says, we need to make Sam Bradford throw the ball. I will be worried if they can have success running the ball because they won't let up on it. I agree with that. If they have success running, I think we could be in for a long day. But if they can't run the football effectively and they have to throw it with Sam Bradford, I will feel much more comfortable with that being their offense, the bulk of it at least, in this game than the other way around where they're getting yards on the ground and staying consistently with the ground game. They have a couple of backs that can run it. Matt Asiata doesn't scare you, but we've had trouble with big, bulky, burly Minnesota Viking backs in the past. If you remember, one year, Toby Gerhart lit us up for the Vikings. So I'd love to see us stop the ground game early and force them to take to the air. Dom Espo says, P. Boogie has been invisible all year. When is this man going to get some pressure? That's basically what I said. I'd love to see him ratchet it up because he's been a big disappointment this season. And we could use him starting to turn it up and winning some one-on-one matchups. Eagle Speed as a nerd says, the Vikings are done. Pressure the quarterback and they're dead since defenses get tired. I hope you're right. I hope the Redskins can do that. Easier said than done, though. Captain Spartan 04 says, you get whatever player you want on your Redskins, but you have to get rid of your best player. I guess, Reed, would you take it? I probably would. If you tell me I can have any player in the league, sure, I'd take that, you know. Love Jordan Reed. I don't know if Jordan Reed is our best player. He probably is. Trent Williams might classify for that. Josh Norman might classify for that. Like I said, we got 3 guys that you could consider, you know, the best player on this team. It's all into what your preference is. But bottom line is, if you told me I could pick any player in the league and I just had to give up one, sure, I'd do that. I'd make that trade. I don't know if I would want it to be Jordan Reed, though, but I'd make that trade. But I like mine. Just know that. I like mine, but I can't pass on the opportunity to just poach one player off of anybody's roster that I like. Jonathan Adams says, you should be on the Redskins 24/7 with Larry Michael. I appreciate that, man. Clorox Bleach says, are the horrible referees causing the NFL ratings to go down? I think it's a number of different factors causing the NFL ratings to go down. I think once it gets a lot colder outside and there's less to do, now that the election is over with, now that the baseball playoffs are over with, I think all of those factors coming together at once is going to allow the ratings to go back up. But make no mistake about it, the ratings are down, and I'm not upset that they're down, honestly speaking, because and then you also have to take into consideration there are so many different ways to watch any program now. The internet is taking over. And streaming, programs live and finding other alternate ways to watch, it's something that's going to also hurt ratings. If someone's watching on their laptop instead of watching the game on their television set, yeah, that's going to hurt their ratings because they don't factor those things into the ratings. So I think there are a number of different factors, but at the end of the day, I think the NFL is just fine, and we'll find that out over the next 7 weeks or so. DMV Pride 10 says, over under 15 carries for Fat Rob. I'll take the over on that. If the Redskins have any type of success, I'll definitely take the over. But I think in order to remain balanced, he's going to need more than 15 carries. I don't think it's going to be much more, though. I don't think he's going to make it to 20. I think he'll have 16 or 18 carries in this game, somewhere in that neighborhood. Hopefully it's for north of 80 yards. But we'll see what happens. We'll see what the approach is, how the Vikings are playing us. Are they giving us some rushing lanes? Are they shutting down the run? Because we know this team will quit running if it gets shut down early. And this is a defense that can shut the run down and will shut it down if we don't block and sustain our blocks in this game. Sergio Pinto Tapia says, what's the update on Kaishan Jarrett? Since Blackman is hurt and Duke suffered a head injury, Kaishan Jarrett is no longer on his football team, and he's not going to resume any football activities. His career is most likely over with nerve damage. So no Kaishan Jarrett. He's done. As far as Blackman is concerned, I think he's going to be able to go. I know he did have the fractured thumb, but they can put a cast on that. So he should be able to rock and roll. And Duke, don't know his status for the game, but obviously, like you mentioned, did have a concussion and left the London game, but he's had another week to nurse that concussion. Hopefully, he's went through the protocol and he's fine and ready to go. We'll see. Haven't heard anything about an injury report quite yet. Don't know who practiced today, so we'll see what happens with that. Adrian Hernandez says, is it just me when it seems like we can drop 40 on anyone but don't? Yeah, it's not you. It's just we just don't score enough in the red zone. I mean, last year, the reason why we were so dynamic was because we would score points. We were one of the best red zone offenses last year. And it wasn't really hard. It was pretty simple last year. Get the football to Jordan Reed, Pierre Garçon in the red zone. Sprinkling a little bit of Jordan, Jamison Crowder. But we got to be able to run the football. The best red zone offenses can run the football inside the red zone, and we just don't run it very well. We don't even try. We're the least in terms of percentage of pass to run, the ratio. Ours is skewed the most in terms of the pass to run ratio in our division, especially when we get in the red zone. We don't run it enough. I think we can be an effective run team down there, but we just don't run it enough. Lorenzo Simpson says, what would you grade this year's draft class of as of right now? I won't. I don't usually grade drafts for 2 to 3 years down the road. Usually 3 years is the barometer where you can start to look at these guys and see what they're about. I think this draft class has been good thus far, but still a whole half of a season to play, and it's too early to judge. Obviously, you haven't even seen Josh Doctson really, except for bits and pieces of the Steelers game and the big catch he had against the Cowboys and the 16 fades we threw to him. But you don't really know what Josh Doctson is about. But we've seen Stuart Cravens. We've had huge, major contributions from this draft class already. Our season may be dead if not for the Stuart Craven pick in week 3. Kaishan Jarrett has, not Kaishan Jarrett. You got me saying Kaishan Jarrett. Kendall Fuller has come in and been magnificent for us in the nickel slot position. So those two guys alone have proved to be huge players in this draft class alone. So we've gotten a little bit of mileage out of those guys. We've seen Matt Ioannidis get in at nose and have played some nose tackle for us this year. So this draft class has done some things already thus far. Let's see. Andre Mogul says, from a coaching standpoint, what adjustments would you like to see the coaching staff going into the second half of the season? We'll talk about that when we get to the bow and go. And Jonathan Adams says, this game kind of scares me a little bit. We need to play Redskins-style football. I don't even know what the hell Redskins-style football is right now. That's a really good question. What is that? Is that throwing it 40 times with Kirk? Is that being balanced? Is that running it? We don't have an identity to me. I don't really know who we are. So that's a really good question. But whatever Redskins style football is, we definitely need to play that to the best of our abilities to have a shot to win. Speaking of which, let's move on to the next segment, Redskins bow and go. Redskins bow and go. All right, so just to put a bow on the first half of the season, we're going to move on and go to Week 10 versus the Minnesota Vikings. Redskins are 4-3-1. We've had our fair share of opportunities. We should have either been 5-3 or 6-2 right now. I mean, we've had our fair share of opportunities to win the last two ball games, and we frankly just didn't get it done in in Detroit. We just need to get a stop, and we couldn't get a stop. And we let Matthew Stafford go right down the field and beat us. And we had that game at the end. All the mistakes we made in that game, we were leading with under a minute to go, and we blew it. The very next week, we can make excuses. The officials were horrible, this, that, and the third, but Dustin Hopkins, 34-yard field goal. Got to make it. We didn't make it. We didn't get the game. It ended up being in a tie. So 4-3-1 is where we sit, and I think we're one of the best 6 teams in the NFC. I truly do believe that. But in order to get a ticket to the dance, we have to prove that. We can believe that we're good all we want, but the proof is in the pudding. The results are what counts, and we got to go out and stack up W's like bricks in the second half of this season in order to make the playoffs. I think we're a playoff caliber football team. The NFC conference is wide open. You look around this conference, and you'll see about 8 teams vying for 2 spots, those 2 wild cards. We're one of them. We got to start winning some football games because the team that beat us 2 weeks ago, the Detroit Lions, don't look now. They're 5-4. Okay? They're hungry. They're looking for a playoff spot. They're still thinking they can win their division. They're not out of that race. They're right in the thick of that race. They may win their division. So if they do win the division, guess what? We got to play Minnesota this week, Green Bay next week. Those 2 teams will be looking for a wild card if they don't win their division. So all that means is that we have to start beating these teams that are going to be looking for tiebreakers when the season is over. And we're looking around at everybody else and saying, hey, hope we did enough. No, most likely we're not going to end up tied with anybody because of the tie that we have. But you don't want to lose to these teams because that's just one more obstacle that you're going to have to overcome. I don't mind losing to AFC teams. That Steelers lost week 1, I didn't give a damn. And, people wanted that game so bad. I didn't care about that game. It's an AFC game. You know what I wanted more than that? Week 2 versus the Cowboys. We blew it. Cincinnati in London should have won that game. But I don't give a damn about that game. You know why? AFC game. But Detroit, I cared about that game, and we blew it. We got to win this game. Minnesota Vikings at the crib. They're struggling. We're coming off a bye. We got to find a way to get it done. Speaking of which, let's go ahead and go to the Minnesota Vikings in week number 10. All right, so this is a major game for us. It's not a must-win. We're not at that point in our season. If we lose this game, it's not going to kill our season. It's not going to do anything of the sort. But for a team coming off a bye with a lot to prove, we need to come out and establish ourselves. If we want to get off to a good start in the second half of the season, we need to win this game. Last year, our meal ticket to winning the division was home cooking. We played our best football in front of the faithful at FedEx Field. Okay, last year, tough place to come in and get a win during the regular season. Now, we crapped the bed in the playoffs versus the Green Bay Packers, but in the regular season, we only lost one time at home last year in the regular season. That was to the Dallas Cowboys. Every other game at home, we took care of business. Remember, we struggled on the road last year. We only won 2 games on the road last year. So we can get it done. But it's going to have to start at the crib. We're going to have to, I think we won 3 games on the road. So we went 6-2 last year at home. Won 3 in a row on the road. We beat the Cowboys, Eagles, and Bears to finish up the season on the road last year. So we won 6 games. We went 6-2. We've already lost 2 games at home this season. Already lost 2 games. That was our total for the entire season at home last year. First 2 games of the season at home, we lost both of them. We can't afford to keep losing home games. We got to take care of business at the crib. So this is a monumentally huge game for us. And we got to have it. It's really simple. And I've already talked about keys to the game. I'll quickly go over them again. On the offensive side of football, we got to protect Kirk. You got to give him time. No Trent Williams, Ty Nsekhe in at left tackle. I thought Sean Laval got his ass whooped last game. That's got to change. We can't have interior pressure because that's when Kirk struggles the most. We got to protect Kirk. And it'd be great to stay balanced. But bottom line is, if we got to throw it 40 times, so be it. We got to protect Kirk in this game or we'll be in trouble. Got to protect the football in this game. The Vikings are struggling to score the rock. Don't give them any short fields. Don't give them any big plays on special teams. You do those things and we'll be fine on offense. You give up some special teams plays. You give up a turnover or two. You're going to find yourself in a very precarious situation late in this ball game with a chance to lose at home to a struggling Vikings team who's lost 3 in a row. They're going to be desperate. I already said that. They're coming into FedEx desperate for a win. So they're going to come and try to play the best game they've played all season long because they want to snap this losing streak in the worst way. The team that they lost to last week is sitting a half game behind them in the division for the lead. They can't afford another loss, and they know that. So they're going to come in as desperate a team as we've seen all season long. And we got to match that intensity. Defensively, I said it before, I say it again. We have to stop the run and make Sam Bradford beat us. If he does, you tip your cap and say, you got us, man. You were the better team today. But if they can run the football, they're going to keep running the football because their offense has been anemic this season. Nothing cheap, nothing deep, no chunk plays. Make them earn it. They're using the short passing game right now to be the offense, the catalyst that drives their offense right now. Can't allow it to be the case. Can't allow them to get 3 on first down, 4 on second down, and be in 3rd and 3 all game long. Hard to get off the field in those type of situations. So we'll see what happens. But in any event, this Vikings team, I remember looking at this game, a month ago and saying, oh, hell, we got the Vikings off the bye. That's going to be tough. Still going to be tough. But now it looks totally different. This is a very winnable game. Whereas before you're like, I don't know if we're going to beat the Vikings or not. Very winnable game. And we got to win it. You can't keep wasting home opportunities. We've already squandered 2. That was the amount we squandered a season ago. Total for the season. We're halfway through the year and we've already lost 2 games at home. That can't be the case moving forward. Let's go to the final outcome. It's the final outcome. Whoa, yeah. All right, so for me, looking at this game, I think it's a very winnable game. I think we have a golden opportunity to do some damage, not only in our division and make up some ground, but I'm thinking we got a serious chance at doing some damage in this conference. The Vikings are a team that, if they don't win their division, will be vying for a wild card spot. We have to start beating these teams that are looking to get in just like we are. Green Bay is next up next week. They're going to be looking to get in via wild card if they can't win that division either. So we need to start winning these games against NFC opponents because that's one of those tiebreakers. Another tiebreaker, especially if we're trying to win a division, common opponents. Your record against them. We're the only team in our division with a tie. So the likelihood, and let me reiterate this, the likelihood of us finishing tied with anybody around the league other than Arizona and Seattle in our conference is slim to none. No one else is going to tie this season, most likely. Ties are so rare in this league. The fact that we've had 2 this season is almost unbelievable. But they seem to come in pairs. The last time we had a tie, I think there were 2 ties. I think it was in the year where Gus Frerotte banged his head up against the wall in that Giants game in like 96 or 97. So they come in pairs, and then I know the Bengals and the Panthers tied a couple years ago, 2013, 14, something like that. So the ties are rare in this league. I don't foresee anyone else tying this year. So I don't think we're going to need tiebreakers, but you need to be able to beat teams around you and in your conference. We need this one. We need to go get it. And I think we can go get this one. I don't think it's going to be pretty at all, but I do see the Redskins winning this game 23-20 over the Minnesota Vikings. It's going to be tough. It's going to be rough. It's going to be rugged, but we got to find a way to get it done. And I think D-Hop will avenge the miss versus Cincinnati with a late field goal to help us win this game versus the Minnesota Vikings. That's my final outcome in this game. I thank you guys for joining me here on the Redskins Report. Remember, my Redskins spirit will never die. My Redskins spirit will never fold until we meet again. Hail to our beloved Redskins. I think this is a winnable football game. I really do. I'll be very disappointed if we don't find a way to win. The Vikings are struggling right now. And I'm not saying that we're a great team and we're supposed to dominate them or anything of the sort. I just want to win. I don't care if it's ugly. I don't care if it's aesthetically pleasing. I don't give a damn about any of that. I just want to find a way to get a W and get to 5-3-1 on the season. And I think the Vikings are ripe for the picking right now. They're struggling on offense. Defensively, they're good, but they're not creating and generating the turnovers they were earlier in the season. If we take care of the football, we protect Kirk, protect the Rock, and stop the run, I think, and special teams. I don't want to forget about that. We cannot give up. They've been really good on special teams this year. We cannot give up anything on special teams. Limit the big plays. Make them earn everything they get. Don't let them throw a slip screen to Cordero Patterson and have him run for 75 yards and a touchdown. Don't let that happen in this game. Don't let Marcus Sherrills catch a punt and run it back 57 yards for a touchdown. Make them earn every single thing they get in this game. And if they do, I think we'll maximize our opportunities to win this game. So with that being said, thank you guys for joining me on this program. I'm just happy to see the boys back on the field. It was a funny, eerie feeling not having the fellas on the television screen last week. Good to see them back in action this week. Hopefully we'll be healthy and ready to rock and roll. And hopefully we're talking about a W this time next week. For everybody that joined me tonight, thank you. All the comments, I appreciate it. For all of you out there, hail to our beloved Redskins. See you next week. Hopefully you'll join me tonight on Louie T Live at 9:30. I'll see you then. Have a good one. As always, go get them, fellas. Bring home the dub.